Okay, and welcome back. So today I'm going to do a head drawing demonstration in kind of a pen and ink style. I'm still working with the Wacom tablet, the Intuos Wacom tablet, until we start filming more traditional materials starting in June 2017, and we'll release those starting in probably July or August with a lot more traditional materials. But I wanted to do a demo study here, a head study, in kind of this style. So I'm using the Wacom tablet, and I've got it on sepia here, this kind of brownish tone. And it's about 8 point, and opacity is about 45%. So the look I'm after is something, making a few marks here, is something like a pen and ink, or like a nice fountain pen with ink in through here, and more of a gestural kind of style. So I thought I would show you a few studies I've done before very quick. These are probably maybe an hour and 20 minutes, maybe some a little bit less time. So where I've gestured in the entire structure of the head and then gone back and rendered a little bit of some of the eye area in more relevant focal point parts, and then I let some areas just kind of go on their own. Overhead, slightly overhead shot of a figure here in composition, and another shot where I'm slightly or more underneath the head shot in through here. So slightly above and then slightly underneath in through there. Then adding a little extra value, but keeping it very, very loose, very gestural, and very, very flowy. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I'll set up here with my model. One of our fine model, Brian Baxter from the School of the Arts here at Northern Kentucky University. So pretty fun shot of Brian here. And so let's start in on a lay-in. So I've kind of got the screen, fit to screen here. Maybe go a little bit smaller so I can push him over just a little bit more, so I can get this in just a little bit further, I think. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want to look at is just the structure of the head and the gestural structure, laying of the head. So I may start down in through here in the chin, and then start to just work my way up through the oval-like structure of the head, curving in through here and then around. So I'm just getting a basic feel for the head structure of my model. Chin kind of pushed down a little bit, tucked under, extra parts where it's tucked through here just a little bit. So he's got an open mouth, kind of a surprised look to the model's pose in this position, and again indicate a little bit of the shoulder in through here and coming on up to the neck. And then I'll go for start to indicate side plane of the head, which will be right behind the eyeball, about right in through here where my cursor is. This starts right here where I'm moving. That starts the side plane of the head. So I try to get my students really quickly to indicate that in almost every viewpoint that they have. You'll get that, except for extreme full-on front back view of the head, which you won't see as much because the back of the head is a little bit wider than the front of the head, or it's quite a bit wider. Alright, so I've kind of gestured in the basics of head structure in through here, just working on kind of just a flat, relatively flat with a little bit of volume laying. Then we'll start to look at the forehead here, in the brow, kind of a raised brow up a little bit in this direction. And then I'll start to look for, right in through here of the nose, down here's the front vertical plane of the true center of the head, right in through here coming on down. So right in through here and over. We'll pull his chin out a little bit further in this direction. Here and on up. Pulling in a little structure here with the cheek. Jaw structure coming through in through here. Then I'll find the eye line. So the eye line is right in through here. It's slightly tilted downward to the left, just a little bit, kind of like the brow coming through here. Hairline can be pushed back over. So, I've got the opacity on about 45, and I'll probably keep it there for most of my drawing. And again, I want this to be a kind of a pen and ink look, so I'll keep a more hatched kind of look to my drawing. I'm looking to do about an hour study or so. Maybe more, maybe a little bit less. So the eye, center the eye line right in through here. And what I've noticed about working with the Wacom tablet, I haven't worked too long on it, is that the screen is, I'm working on a laptop, a MacBook Pro, and the further away you get your screen, it gets small, and so it's hard to see close up, like as a piece of paper, and that's a little funky. So I have to bring it in, really large, kind of like that, which is totally fine. It seems to work out, but that's something that you don't generally get to do as much when you're just drawing from a normal product. So the nose is kind of tucked down just slightly through here. The nostril rhythm is through there. So I've done a lot of demoing just now on gesture, and this is kind of, again, why gesture is important even with the head study. When I'm starting to grope around for head structure, gesture is really important. So I'm not going for a lot of high detail. That can come much later, but we're looking for, and this is going to be a looser study anyway, but we can again look for the features of the head and the face in a very gestural kind of sense. So the nose pops just a little bit further out of the cheekbone, which is about right here. It hides behind and comes on down in through here. So we've got that. I may already go ahead and capture a little bit of the shadow line right in through there, and then start to just throw in a little hatched line for some tone, just to start blocking in some of my shadows right in through there. Kind of a surprised expression coming on down in through here. Working on the hair a little bit more. Just give a little bit of tone. We don't want to forget about this area. This is the back of the hair and through here, and this might have to come in just a little bit downward. Always looking to refine my edge a little bit when I need to. This curves in just a little bit. So one thing about working the Wacom tablet, it's a little harder to adjust for width and pressure. Somewhat on pressure, you're fine, but on width on the fly, that's takes a lot of getting used to. So we'll kind of just gingerly map in the mouth area. I'm kind of going for this downward trending look. Through here, it's kind of like a whistling almost kind of expression. The mouth sort of trends downward in through here. And then curves, see this curves, the flow that curves on down, coming in through. Bring this fold up a little bit. Bring that over. This lower lip will buckle on through a little bit and through here. We'll go back and tighten it up a little bit later. Define this cheek. I'm always looking for 3D, defining that cheek, turning that cheek a little bit. Go ahead and set the ear in so the height of the ear is about where the point of the eye will be, roughly in through here in this particular viewpoint. So when you start getting head views and side views, that's all going to start to change a little bit lower than the nostril, the nose, classic sort of question mark shape of the ear. We talked about that some, and sort of a tilt, maybe even a little bit further. There's a tilt on. So we'll grab this extra chin in through here. So when I miss it, I just keep correcting it until I need to really tighten it up. That's all going to be in shadow later on anyway. I can kind of put it in a hatched short of shadow there, part of the shoulder and through here. So I work all over the image, working all over. This could come down maybe a little bit further. Push this here back a little bit. And through here. It will go down for the chin. In the mouth region, this will cut in. Chin will cut out just a little bit and start to cut back in. And we'll push that side plane of the head in through there. Push him down. Gonna raise these up a little bit and through here. So kind of come up and bring that nose in. So I'm getting to the point now where I'll start to look and see, okay, where can I adjust and correct right in through here a little bit. Bring this up and in. On up and over through here. Later on this will be darker. And I'll go into the eye. And here I think I'll go in and go in a little bit deeper now. So I'll pull in a little bit so I can get a little bit more clarity. And I can actually just see it a little bit. So I'll start to pull in, contour line in through here. This is all going to still be in shadow. Brow in through here. If it's a little bit higher. So keep it pretty loose. So we're going to go for a pen and ink or an inky kind of sketch. Nose in through here, maybe a little bit longer coming down. So we see this hub on the back side of the nose. There's the tip of the nostril, excuse me, the tip of the front of the nose through here. This will get pushed back in shadow. So a lot of times, again, I'll find the shadow shape of the downward part of the center part of the nose down to the philtrum. Of course, this curls back in a little bit, and this comes on down and down over to the lip and through here. And I'll start to fill this shape, the side of the head, kind of curled over, where it's kind of tucked under. And of course, all this can go now back in shadow right there. Part of the brow and the nose hub will come in through here like so. So we'll get the tip of the nostril, the front of the nose again, right in through. Now I'll come in here and start to open up the shape of the nostril in through here. This opens up here. It curls and down and over. This is in part of it's in shadow. The true part of its shape is over here a little bit. So this curls up. See, that curls up a little bit in through there, and then we come around to the nostril, the thicker part of the nostril right in through here, and then on down. And then we can start to shade that in a little bit, that top plane. So it's moving away from the light just a little bit and through there. And then I'll start to close some of this up through shadow in here. Highlight will be in through here. I can go back and draw through that a little bit further, and I'll show you how to erase that out. I'll just draw over that and shade it down a little bit. This will be a little bit darker. You know, a lot of times when I do these sort of what I call pen and ink whack-em studies, I don't necessarily draw every value the way it looks like in the model of the photograph. But what I do is I get a good value relationship, because I'm looking for no more than about an hour or so for a study to keep it down. And of course, doing a demo, we don't want to go. I want to go too long when I don't guess I don't have to. I don't want to put my audience to sleep too much. The eyeballs in through here, the pupil and iris go out and coming in, and then the eyelash a little bit, but we just want to keep it a very subtle silhouette for the most part, in through here as the brow starts to come over. So we've got some nose there, and then we'll come on through, up and through here. I'll find the shadow shape in through here. Cast shadow of the eye. The light sources from the top right, coming down on the model. So this is all going to be more in shadow in through here. There we go. Come up on the nose a little bit. This is all in shadow. Don't be afraid if you can to be really bold with your hatching. I don't do as much cross hatching. I do more hatching just because I like the look of hatching better. It's an aesthetic choice more than really anything else. So, tone this plane down to the nose. We come on down a little bit, and then I'll show you how to get a highlight subtractively in this underneath part. And so see the shadow shape above the nostril right in here. So a lot of times when I have a strong shadow shape, I'll find its edge. This is going to be a little softer, but I'll go ahead and find its edge. This moves down this muzzle, this curved muzzle of the mouth, right in through there, and then I'll go ahead and block that in like so. This will be a little softer, so I'll fade this out with some more hatch line on top. And yeah, it's probably going to be a little bit darker, but I'm not going to go any darker than that. Let me show you what I do with the nose or other areas of highlight. So I can go pretty deep into the nose with a Wacom tablet, and I could do this with a crayon drawing or a drawing with charcoal or something else. Where ink is a little bit harder. You could use something lighter, wider, but I can take where the highlight is and just take my erasing tool and just start to erase back where some of this highlighted shape is to give you that sort of glistening kind of highlight. It's something you can't do necessarily with an ink pen in its truest reality in nature. And then there's a little highlight that kind of cascades across the tip of the nostril, which is like a tube. We could come on down like so, and you could keep on drawing and tightening, edges as you will. But the main thing is this kind of hubbing through here, then around this part of the nostril, right in through there. So if I go pull back a little bit, tap on the top, and you can see where I start to get a nicer highlight with my drawing. So I'm looking at that nose, and I think I want to downward turn the nostril just a little bit. So I'll go back to the pen tool, and then right in through here, it gets a little bit more curved. So I can make this a little darker, push this right in through here. It's arched over again, so I'm looking for that shape. This dark in here is more cast shadow right in through there. So I'll push a little dark where this creases here and creases in here. And that's a little bit more of an apex higher, and then it kind of comes crashing down a little bit further. So let's pull out a little bit. That feels a little bit better. The nostril's pretty open in the surprised kind of point of view that the model is taking in through there. So we have that. We don't see a lot of the top lip. We see a little bit of this coming over and arched over right in through there. Top lip tilts up. And that classic V shape of the lip, of the lip, or come down here. And so see how this is all trending downward, this curve, trending downward through here. So we'll curve it down. And I'll put some tone on this kind of the curved aspect of his mouth, muzzle, kind of right in through here. And top lip is in shadow. It looks something a little bit like this. It's kind of in a whistling position. This is curved. Bottom lip is really curled in, almost like he's sucking on a lemon. So this is curled up and cupped up a little bit. Everything really, for the most part here, is in a little shadow. So I'll just push that back into shadow right in through there. And so that feels like it's curved and coming up. And if I wanted to later on, we could go in with the eraser tool and get some of those little detailed highlights. That's something I'll probably mostly do at the end. And I did want to show you in the beginning so you could kind of see that a little bit more fully, how to get that right away. And there's a little tone where there's slight mustache hair coming through for shaving, like so. All right, so we could pull out a little bit through here. See that? Push him over in through here. And so I want to go up and recapture some of the head. Maybe this needs to go a little higher in through here. This is going to be curled up a little bit. Come down. I'm always trying to recapture, make sure I recapture my edge. So the space between the top of the ear and the head here, I could go a little bit lower. Don't worry about this. This will all kind of fade off. It may look like extra hair coming in through here, and I can fade that through with some background tone. Let it be a sketch. You don't have to be so tight. Let it be a drawing. Show your groping for your forms, how you're exploring, form a little bit. Gesture drawing and through a kind of a refined gesture can be a beautiful experience. It always doesn't have to be so slick. And then I like, hatching because it reminds me of painterly marks too, as well. They can stand in a place for painterly marks. Think about Goya. Goya's beautiful Disasters of War and Caprichos, and his other series in etchings that really show that beautiful vibrancy of mark making. So we've got the inner ear here, kind of a refined, another C-shaped curve and on over, and this is really rough and loose, and I just find the shadow shape in here for now. We can come visit that. That doesn't have to be so defined in the sketch. The jaw, here's the bottom of the jawline is very subtle. Follow the cursor, it moves down and it stays open. It would naturally come to a resting position more in through here, but since the mouth is kind of downward turned here, this movement of, well, I'll put a little shadow here, this curves down, comes in and tucks under the chin here, like so. And then we have a double extra because he's really tucking his chin back into his neck. And so that's going to give anybody that would do that would have extra through there. And then so this gathers and then it comes back down in through here. So I'm contouring. If you'll notice, I'm contouring a lot as I draw. And so I'm doing a sketchy gestural feel, and I'm contouring around the form, around planes of the head, ears, the underneath part of the head, the face, in through here, shoulder, to get that lively feeling. I always want to constantly make and look and make it feel alive. You want to make it feel alive. So let's go diving back in and get more of a close-up view here to the head, into the chin region. So I'll go back underneath the chin, the lip, and I'll find that shadow shape. So see how I can define that shadow shape in through here a little bit, curve that on through, come on around, and look how this chin right here is where it tucks a little bit, that bony protrusion where he's tucking in here. This comes in a little bit, and the other side of the chin comes out. So notice this curve. If I kept going, watch my cursor, that's where the other part of the chin in perspective happens, underneath here, and see how it curves up and in and over like that. It kind of comes in. This is all going to be tucked in, kind of a cast creasing shadow in there. So I can take all of this shadow here and just bathe it in a block in of hatched shadow line right into here, this form shadow right in through there, into here, and then come tuck it underneath here, and then we've got this thing working for us in here. Okay, so then I can leave it that value. I could go a little bit darker later on, maybe a little coarse shadow where it gets darkest right in through here, soften that up a little bit through here, come on down, maybe with a slight different direction, and then take this up, put a little bit of more volume underneath, This can kind of come up here. And we can move in this direction. And so now I'll kind of map out this sub shadow in through here. See this muzzle form in through here? It comes up through the front part of his face. I'm just following that shadow. Here's his cheek's bony structure coming out. See how this makes kind of a triangle right in through here where the highlight is. It's going to be up in through here. You follow the cursor and on through. And that's a little darker. I'm just looking for that triangle shape in my drawing. So you see this chin really start to emerge kind of outward, and then this curls in like so and through here. And again, I'm thinking contour. This folds, flaps over because the light's on the right. This is like a little tube, and this is the shadow side of that tube. In through here, he's kind of tweeting out, so his lip curls again, the folds of his skin more so than the lip. It folds in through, and there's a little extra fold. You get those extra folds when you get over. I know Brian very well. He's a great, great model here in the Cincinnati, Kentucky area. One of the best I work with, and I work with models all over the country. LA when I was a student, in New York City, in Phoenix, Arizona, and now here in the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area. So he's a great model. So, alright, so we can go in here, tuck underneath to this part of the cheek and chin, and define that in. I'm just going to be very loose. It's a sketchbook sketch. It's not meant to be a highly polished rendered drawing, which it depends, that's subjective. It gets a little boring. But that depends on the person. So we're moving through here. So we'll tone that down just a little bit, maybe make this a little darker, some stronger, thicker line. The more I push down, the more this gets a little bit dark. Alright, so we've got this underneath chin area kind of defined. Let me see if I can tighten it up just a little bit. I don't have to go too dark with it since it's not that important. It's a sketch. So this moves underneath in a sub form in through here, and then it gets strong. So we have one, and then this bigger arch, sort of a sub-arch in through here. I make this stronger line, so makes it a little bit too dominant. You can turn that down by contouring this way, and then contouring down as this shadow starts to move down. So it's a little bit of a cast shadow, so this edge up to about right here will stay a little bit harder edged, right in through there. So we've got that. So okay, let's go up now to curving around here to the underneath jaw, the extra folds that he's going to get because of the expression. And then I can these are really sausagey like forms. Turn, 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 like so. And then see this dark area right in through here? That's where the cheekbone ends. It starts to hollow out a little bit, so that's going to get a little darker. Here's where you get into subtleties of the form and through here. And see this sort of curve, this whole triangular shark's tooth shape that you get with this jaw right in through here. And then this whole system here. I'm going to give some lighter lines, push it down. That's going to turn. We can get darker later. I like the lines to show. I don't mind the showing of strong gesture in my drawings. I actually prefer that to slick rendering. It's a difference between Giacometti maybe and Ingres, a French painter. So we'll curve that. We need to curve this up, this tweaking of the lip to make him a little puckered. That's good. So it's all in the subtlety. Sometimes I get it. Sometimes I really have to work hard to get the subtleties. And sometimes, you know what? I don't get it. Not every drawing is stellar, and that's why you just practice. Practice a lot. Make your mistakes. Get your 10,000 hours of diligence in, no matter what you're going to be doing, whether it's drawing or painting or both, obviously, or sculpture or being a computer programmer. We need computer programmers. We need everybody. Good. We need good people. Working hard in our society. So anyway, enough of that. So okay, so we're going to get this shadow down here. This little puckered shadow from this muscle that starts behind the ear comes on down, and then we'll get this a slightly sharper cast shadow, and then it moves into a form shadow. Right up in here, I'll make a series of darker cut-in lines to show where it's ending. It really kind of cuts in. I might cut it in too hard, but I think it looks okay, so we'll curve that in. And I'll throw some more contour over here. Let's pull back out a little bit, and then we can pull in our drawing here. So what I'm going to do to finish the drawing, and I want to continue to render the front of the face, and I've got enough in my design for my sketch. A lot of times when I do my sketch, since it's for a sketchbook, it's a digital sketchbook, these are 10 inches by 10 inches at 240 DPI, so if I did want to print them, I could print them out at good resolution. You know, if it's just because it's just a sketch, and for time's sake, I don't have to render all this out, but I do want you to see me control the eyes and also slightly some of the rest of this, and we'll just see how it goes, see how the time holds out for the rest of it. But a lot of times I won't necessarily finish everything. It's not necessarily that important. I want to keep it loose and keep it moving. Not that I wouldn't with the finish, but just for time's sake. So a little bit darker in through here. And sometimes I use a scratchier kind of calligraphic line too as well. So we're going to push this a little darker down the chin. Bring out that coarse shadow a little bit and through here. And I'm going to pull back in his mouth and really work on this little shadow shape in through here. See this curve all the way down? It continues from his lip and through here, and then kind of moves upward. So I can really bring this up and over, pucker this over, bring that curved line to the left, and balance it with a curved line in the opposite direction to give you that puckering that's going on with the drawing here and then right there. And then I can come back on over like so, and then bring this down. This goes down pretty far. So I've got that moving for me. And I bring one line down in through here, make this just a little bit fatter. Through here, and one more stab at coarse shadow. I think that'll be plenty enough in through here. Maybe bring this over. Got it through there. All right, so I'll bring this shadow shape down a little bit further, kind of blend that in with just more hatch line. This strong line in through here moves in this direction. This kind of curls up in through. Stronger, thicker, kind of cutting in line through here. Just continue to hatch a little bit darker in through here. There we go. Okay. With the back of this nose, he kind of comes in through here. Alright, so let's pull out. It's looking pretty good, pretty arched, maybe just a slight darker variation through there. Okay, so let's come in, let's work in this cheekbone area a little bit. I'll pull out just a little bit, and then we'll start to pop in this eye a little further where he's at. I Think about the round eyeball and through there. So here he is with his cheekbone right underneath that highlight, moving up in a gestural direction this way. This will be a little darker through here, and this kind of curves over, and this gets a little lighter in this area right in through here. So we'll pull up. In my hatching, I'm pulling up back to the ear, which is what that jaw is doing. So I'm thinking about some anatomy, and I'm thinking about pulling him back up to where his anatomical structure feature, where this jaw, see how it dips down way in through here, then it comes way back up to kind of the top of the ear, really to the auditory canal. That's where it's really going to. So it's in here. I'll kind of show you a line. It wants to fall back up into right there. So I'll throw a little anatomy that's maybe not so obvious. We'll go into anatomy at a later time with all these video lectures. I'll be doing these things for a long time. So a little bit in this direction. Getting through here, then this cascades over. So it's also moving in that direction. His hairline is kind of where the side plane is, a little bit further over, kind of in this direction. Through here. There we go. Bring him down. This gets darker back in through there like so. There we go. And I might put a strong line to cut in. Notice I'm not changing my width. So I'm drawing. Part of what I'm doing is to keep the look of the drawing to feel like a pen and ink drawing. So the nib is going to stay the same, and it's going to be a higher opacity than I would if I'm drawing to make it look like charcoal. And this is certainly with the Wacom tablet. Later on, as we go into filming with a high-def 4K camera, we'll work in charcoal and graphite and Conte and other materials, and you'll get the idea. You'll get the natural change in width really quickly. That's one weakness, at least in my opinion, of working with the Wacom. As it gets a little tougher to do that. Unless you've got a lot of time to sit and adjust, which you can do, then you can mimic that pretty well. But then there always are some differences there. All right, so I'm going to work on this bottom eye, start at shadow. Notice how this whole area is the eye cavity, the eye orbit, the box that your eyeball fits in, this larger area. And the whole thing is a little bit in shadow, so I'm going to go ahead and throw a couple of gesture contour lines already over it, and then already up in through his forehead too. It's not just stark white there. So I'll go ahead and throw that in, and I'm going to keep working on his cheekbone a little bit here. Pull him in like so. So I'm going to bring this out a little further. Make this a little bit darker and then go back. Some lines in through here. Just touch up that a little bit. There we go. Raise this higher. I'm going to hit a highlight there in a little while. Okay, so let's go back down in through here. This lower eye, I'm right in through here. Lower eye in through here. I'm going to work this cheekbone a little further. And so now I'll slow down and be a little bit more careful, contouring around this triangle of the cheekbone. It's starting to move here and then move away and change contour direction. So go flowing in here, and I'm going to just pop in a little dark on this ear. I'm not going to do too much more in this ear. I want it to be really loose and more suggestive than anything else. Master of suggestion was Lautrec. Not that this drawing looks like Lautrec's, but it's Lautreckian kind of an idea to suggest rather than to render completely. You know, Lautrec versus Bouguereau, if you know your art history, that was a big change. Degas was a master of suggestion. The Impressionist, right, can give the idea of impression, but Lautrec, in terms of drawing, was so original in that sense. So we'll bring out this cheekbone further, right in through here where we can soften. So the wider I leave the lines, it tends to be a lighter value, and the closer that I pull the lines together, it's a darker value. So it goes over darker running through here, and just need experience working on that. Rendering up the jaw, down the jaw in through here. So I'm gonna now pop back over. Right here, here's a subtriangle about right in through here. And the highlight's is right in through here. It's not too dark, not too light. And there's a real pinch right in through here where the orbit and the skin hit together, and they give you this little dark nibbed area where this is curling over. All this curls over, and then it apexes right in through here where it really starts to turn. So that dark area tells me where it's turning away from the form the most, and it kind of folds in. It's pretty dark. So I'll make there's a little slightly lighter line through there, and then I've got this darker area through there. Now to pull that highlight out, I could watch this, I'll take my eraser, let's make it, that was 8, let's make it about 30. That feels pretty good. And so I could actually erase out my opacities about 0. That feels pretty good, and I can just kind of soften it in. You can't get that with a regular pen and ink. You have to draw around it, or you could gouache over it, which doesn't look quite as nice, or use acrylic paint over it like through there. So, alright, so we've got that. Okay, and we'll come down. All right, so about this time, I'm going to start to soften this up and then dig in there on that eye. Let's get in on that eye. Let's get a little closer so I can actually see it, and so you can see it. So the only problem I have sometimes using the Wacom tablet is if I get too close, sometimes I miss the proportions a little bit, or I don't know if I miss it so much as it makes me struggle to see everything in totality when I'm drawing with natural pieces of paper and drawing materials. It gets a little harder to see because I already see everything together with pen and paper. So I don't know if you have that problem if you're using a Wacom tablet or you're using pen and ink. Either way is fine. So again, I'll go back to traditional materials starting in June when we get our 4K camera from our grant. That's going to come in. Okay, all you NKU students out there and anybody else, all my international students or interested parties. Alright, so let's round this out just a little bit into here. So a little bit pointy. Round that just a little bit. I'm going to let it fade with some hatched lines here. Let it show. It's no big deal. Okay, so let me pop in now on the eye. Let's see what we can do with this eye. So a couple things, drawing the eye, I just showed you a drawing eye demo without sound as I was testing it out. So first thing I might start out with is the high brow. See how it's a little higher? It's moving up this way, and then it moves downward. So I'm just thinking about the flow. Not yet the thickness, but the outer tip flowing downward, crashing down here, and then kind of ending through here. Here's the side plane of the head, right in through there, and then the hair is a little pushed a little bit further over. So if I had to go a little darker with that hair, it would be his darker parts of the hair, this curl would be right in through there. And of course, we go on down to his ear a little bit to there. All right, so got that established. This will be darker to here. So we've got this orbit bone established, and so we'll start to block in a little bit of the brow, in the forehead a little further. Keep it loose, keep it gestural. Blend this a little bit. So eyebrow raised. This is going to tuck just a little bit. It's hard to see with that shadow. And then I start to think about the brow thickness, and everything is pulling kind of in this direction here. I'll wrap around through, up, and then just thinking about the thickness and the flow of these marks to mimic and symbolize the hair. These are all just symbols, dots and dashes and lines and longer lines and thinner lines to show off that which we're trying to express. And the hairline comes up there a little bit. Pen and ink drawing. And so notice this natural curve. So see past the brow about right here where I made my dark line. If you follow up, look at this natural orbit curve. This is all curving in like this. And this wants to curve in and down. And we make that little pivot divot. There's another slider one in through here with a curved line. Then through here and up. This is going to get a little darker. These are definitely going to get a little darker. And through here as this turns also this way. And this helps me locate the eye. So in through here, this brow, this bony part where it's darker, that's still bone. And then it starts to really curl under and tuck underneath like so. And then we get our eye. So right in through here, I'm making that curve. That's cast shadow from the eyelashes and from part of the eyeball. This whole area, actually, where I'm mapping out now, I'll show you. Here and on down and over, I'll make a little darker line right in through to the nose. This shape, you got to really recognize the 2D and the 3D shape. They work together really quickly when you're drawing. I'm going to make this nose a little darker into here. It bothers me. Right through there. Okay, you need to connect the 2D and 3D really together. So this shape over here, right here, I'm starting on coming down this way, trending downward, is part of the eyeball system and the orbit of the eye. And it's all mostly in shadow. So we'll pour that in some more hatch line in shadow. Let me pull out, I'll show you what that looks like for now. So we have that now. And then we'll pull back in and we'll start to get this raised expression of the shadow, the orbit of the eye, and through here. Coming on down, right in through here, and on over with the eye, and through here. And now I can start to feel the eyeball itself, this rounded part. Follow along my cursor. It's harder to see right in through here, right there where I make it a little bit darker. That's the very bottom and through it kind of curls back up and over through here. And then what I'm trying to do is get me to the eyelid, which I feel or I think is about right here. Of course, it fades off in the cast shadow about right there. So I'm going to group that cast shadow in part of the eye together. I feel like there's part of the eyeball here. In his pupil and iris, let's see, more of the eyelid here in this direction, coming on down, like so. This is going to tuck under a little bit, get a little wider. So I'm looking at the thickness of the eyelid, and it fades off a little bit. My pen and ink rendering into here, this goes a little higher, kind of comes down, curls upward a little bit. So I'm thinking about different different types of directions. This curls, that curls in. This can go darker. Okay. This whole eye can go, we'll start with it darker in through here. So he's in a surprise, so his eye is a little wider open. Let's get the bottom part of this lid turned through here. There's a kind of a thicker part of the shadow as he's downward trending. And through here. And up and through. And this lid kind of folds over the bottom lid always. This top part and through here. So we'll come up with our shadow. And through here like so. And catch this brow line through there. Now we've got our eye to work on. Eye, pupil and iris will start to work out a little further. So we don't see a lot of the front. We'll just catch this back. It's open here. Kind of curls in this direction, like so. And this really starts to move up in this direction, the bottom of the lid and through here. As that folds over. So we're going to suggest, since we can't see everything, this is going to come up a little higher. Through here. And on over, let's take a look at it. So it's looking pretty surprised. I still feel like there's a little too much white space with the eye, so I'm going to go back and adjust that a little further in my drawing. So what I mean by that, I'm going to go in a little bit closer so you can even see it further. So you see this area of this white space of the eye, so I feel like that's a little much showing. So I'm going to bring this over a little, this iris a little further over and kind of bring this down like so. And this starts to get into a form in through here. So see how detailed now we can get. And I'll start to throw more hatched line in through here. And all this is going to be buried in a kind of shadow. So you've got cast shadow casting against the orbit of his eye in through here, brows a little higher. And then we come down with this cast shadow against all this, and that whole shadow runs in to his eye. I'm going to group it together. I'm not going to separate it for visual effect. Right in through here, I'm going to group it all together. Then I'm going to quiet down this lighter value in the eye. It's a little bit too bright, so I'm going to quiet that down, or darken it down actually a little bit, so it fades into the light, or shadow, excuse me, and through here. Then I'll come over. Bring that over through here. So we'll work the eye. I'm going to pull this eye down just a little bit here. Make it a little bit more circular. And so running through here is the bottom part of the lid, sort of coming up in through here. And on through. And we'll come up this way, and through here. Get this bottom lid. Start to curl this around even further. Make this a little darker in through here. We'll come around. So I'm a little quieter, trying to concentrate into here. This is probably the toughest part of the drawing. I'll have to step back and we'll see how it looks to adjust where I need to. Through here. So let's take a look. So we've got a pretty surprised look in our head. I think the top part of the eye right in through here is a little large. I'm going to go back and adjust that a little bit. So the top part of his head right in through here will start to get a little curved. Expression in through here. We'll arch that over just a little bit. Whoops, just a little bit in through here. Just a little bit darker for now. And so let's go back on this eye just a little bit further. We can make this forehead, this so area, a little darker. Add some more dark in through here. Fade that in a little bit. So we got a pretty good mouth expression, pretty good chin expression, and we want to go back. Let's clean up this eye a little bit, see what we can do with it. We'll come back over here. Ear can be also a little longer. So don't be afraid to adjust to here on a downward diagonal, top right, bottom left. So we'll take that sketch to there, and let's take a look at this eye. So, okay. So let's get this side feel for the eye. Let's bring this down. I'm going to take my eraser, I'm going to rub out a little bit of this. So if I don't like it, I'll take it right out. It's a good teaching moment, I'll take it right out. That's something else you can't do in pen and ink, which is kind of nice, so we'll take that. We'll take that away. Like so. Go back to pen tool. So I've got that flipping up. I'm going to go deeper in here. Okay, let's go back to our eye and through here. So we'll wrap this up in through here like so. This comes up a little higher, like so. This will wrap up and over that eyelid, stronger in through there. And we'll bring this up, this lid coming over and through here. So what's happening, there's a lot of combination of shadow in eye structure. It gets particularly complex in through here. So if you don't get it the first time, you go back and kind of restructure it. You're kind of combining shadow and eye together. So let's pull this in higher, bring this down a little bit lower in through here. There we go. And I'm going to start bathing this all back in some shadow in through here. And then we'll start to bring the eye over here and kind of tuck in there. And let's see how we're doing in this area. So go a little darker right through there. Let's see, let's pull it back. Yeah, it feels a little bit better. Maybe it's also a little bit long too as well. So we'll keep adjusting as per we need. In through here, kind of come on down. Through this region, like so. and up. Can bring this up and over and through and down. I'm going to take my erasing tool here. I'm going to erase out a little bit, lighten this up and through here. So we can adjust back in through here. Okay. Right, let's go back, take a look. Getting closer. Getting closer. It's a little big there, so we'll make it smaller. Bring this up a little higher. Don't worry about making mistakes now. You just keep working through it. I do. You just get better at resolving them and resolving them the more you do. There we go, up and over. And so this is a cast shadow up through here, so it's still a little darker and stronger. We'll push this over a little further. This turns like so. Alright, so now let's turn this eye in through here. And we just want to fill all this in with the kind of shadow. We want to get back to that suggestion in our sketch. Make sure our structure is sound, so this is going to have to be a little darker and through here, coming down and over. Let's see how we did. Now it feels better. Feels pretty good. This is a little heavy line in through there, so we'll take that and we'll erase that out. Lighten that up a little bit. Right in through here. Tuck that under. So now let's bring this movement right in through the eye, right in through here. We'll bring this darkness over, and then we'll bring it back into that orbit right in through here where that darkest part of that's turning up in through here, and then we'll just turn this cheek, top of this cheekbone this way. And there's that highlight kind of coming through here, and we'll render this a little bit darker, get back to that sort of that triangle here. Okay. Right. And we'll move through. I'll tuck this over a little bit, and I'm going to put a little indication of where the pupil would be, just to give it some context. If I don't, I think it would look odd. This will be a little bit darker. This is where the eyelash will be in through here. This is a particularly tough drawing problem. You have to be suggestive to the shadow because it's in shadow, and throw out a little bit of detail. So sometimes it takes a while. Hopefully you hung in there. You didn't get too bored and clicked away, but we all struggle with a few areas of a particularly tough patch of a drawing or a painting. If you're painting, this can go a little darker into here just to give us a sense of feeling of, even for a sketch sometimes it can get really complicated. So we'll go right in through here, make this a little darker with the outside of the iris, and then this pupil will pull out just a little further. And let's pull him over and take a look and see how we're doing. That feels a little bit better, a little bit more natural. And then so that took a while to kind of to get to it. Sometimes it does. For sure, it can be very difficult. I'm going to darken this in a little bit. I'm going to use a very loose kind of hatched line because I can come back and catch this edge, and that can be outside atmosphere a little bit later, and then we'll catch sort of darkness in through here. Let his head fade off. There's coarse shadow where the nose is. Just a little bit more right in through here. And in this area right in through here of his nose, it's a little bit darker, so we'll push this back in shadow just a little bit to make that work. That was a pretty tough eye drawing problem. It's not a bad job in through here. I've done better. I've done worse, and not too bad in through there. So we get through. Okay, so let's go back and take a look how we're doing in through here. Okay. We can make this come out just a little bit more. Just kind of downward turn in through here. Open that. Make that a little bit darker in through here, kind of coming down. So I'm going to take my erasing tool and I'm going to pop out a little highlight on the eyes. I'll show you what I'm going to do. Two things. I'm going to do one thing where I see and one thing I know. I'm going to put a highlight here where I see, right there, where we need on his eyelid, right in through there. And then I'm going to put a little highlight, maybe just a slight lighter, and then a little highlight here, and I'm going to make it lighter than what I see. I want a little glistening. I'm going to pull back off that pupil and iris and make this a little bit more dominant than what it is in the photograph. Just a little, make it a little bit slicker and wetter looking, kind of right in through there. And I might pull a little bit of tone out here, just to bring that iris back across and over and through here. I might dig in under here just a little bit, so just to bring that over so we can see that just a little bit better with maybe the overdrawing that I did. I can through there, and I can take it if I want to tone it just slightly back down right there in there and fade and kind of fade that out. Let's take a look. Move it over here a little bit. And it's still pretty dark over here. We can go push this. I'm going to try to get some fresh lines in through here where you can really see it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Really gestural to kind of sweep the gesture across and give a little bit of gesture expression into the shadow. It's a very artful kind of mark making strategy to sort of turn this eye into something sort of more movement oriented and fun. Just some dominant dark strokes. This is my focal point. That's why I really had to take some time to get it right, even if I had to go back and redraw it a couple of times, or sort of slightly position it just a little bit more, maybe slightly darker in through there. Let's see. Yeah, it looks a little bit better in through there. This upward trend of the shadow, I'm going to pull this. See how it kind of plays off the same angle as this back of the eye. Right in through here. This could get a little bit darker. And then this angle I'm going to make a little stronger right in through there to play off that whistling sort of surprise, maybe kind of whistle thing that the expression is that he's got going. Okay, so let's pull off of the entire head just a little bit. Let's see it. So it's coming along pretty decently here, and we're getting close to maybe making a finished sketch out of it. And I'll show you a couple of strategies I think about in terms of atmosphere. So this area running through here is a little light, right? But in this nose muzzle, I'm going to tone that down just a little bit with some marks right in through there. Okay, and let's pull this drawing down just a little bit. See how we did in our forehead? You know, just start to gesture and give suggestion or impression to extra hair up in through here. This kind of wisps around. And I'll start, this is very, very subjective and very, very sketchy oriented. This could be pulled back in value, this plane of the head a little bit, so we don't see it as quite as much. Coarse shadow in through here. I'm going to pull out this sort of furrowed brow just to give the surprise expression a little bit more. Bring in his pupil and iris just a little bit. His pupil, just a touch right in through there. I don't want to kill it too much, and I can overdo it. It's a tough place to be. It's not easy, not an easy eye. Okay. And I'll bring this over through here and around. Start to soften in this eyebrow with more hatched mark in through here. And then I might bring a little bit of darkness right in through here, the side plane of the head. As I move him down a little bit further. Down to the side of the head and through here. Going to leave the ear pretty much as it is, slightly unfinished and through there. So I want everybody to look in the eye region primarily. That's my focal point. That's my reason for having the drawing, is to everybody to look inside there. So now you can see where that highlight starts to show up in that eye. I like where it's going with that. So I'm going to actually go back in and make it a little bit stronger, a little glistening, because the light source is more from the far right. And so I'm going to go back in and we're going to pull it out just a little bit further, make it a little bit more hard edged. So when you have a highlight and it's hard edged, it makes it feel like it's glistening, wet, glistening kind of gloss. More so than this one. There's a highlight here that's matte, and I'm going to make this one a little bit more gloss. And take this, glisten that out a little bit, and let's pull back. And so there I've got a little bit more of a twinkle on that corner, that slight corner of the eye. That's pretty important to me. Okay, so one area I think that I did okay on was the nose. I feel like the nose is a little bit more downturned. See how the bottom of the nostril here is a little bit lower than the top hub. See how I've kind of made it even? That's a good learning experience in drawing, is that we tend to even things out. So in my opinion, I need to come back and take this nostril. Let's take it on down the line. It needs to be about here. And so bring it on. I'm just going to bring it on. I try not to erase, and I think I told you earlier I never erase, and I broke my own rule. Sometimes you have to. That's okay, but I try not to. Most of the time, if I don't have to erase, I don't, just because I don't like to erase. Bring that in over here. I'm going to pull this coarse shadow down here. Really bring out that nostril, but see how I brought down the nostril even further. So I've got this curve going back to the left and down. Then I'm going to bring it against this curve going back down to the right. That gathers flesh together right in through there like so. And so we've got that against that. We'll make this a little stronger right in through here. There's kind of a mustache. So let's see how that looks. We'll pull it down a little bit further. Yeah, it looks better. So we can see his nostril kind of downtrending. I think that helps. It helps relieve some of that a little bit better. All right, so a couple things I want to show you before we finish off our head sketch is I want to show you a little bit of atmosphere, and I'm going to bring out this hairline a little further, and then this curl right in through here a little bit more. And I'll tweak this cheek. I want to show you, I want to bring out a little highlight in the lip area, so we'll go deep into the lip area, right in through here, a little bit further. I feel like we need a little detail in through here. And so we'll take, you can see where these little glistening highlights are. So again, I'll take my eraser and make it a little bit thicker, maybe about 6, 7 looks good. And we'll pull out a curved downward position. So he's curved this way. Here, there's a highlight there, and he's curved a little bit more downward in this direction. Curved here, curved down, and then there's one where it fades off a little bit. So that's this twisting and tilting and folding like little cylinders, folding up, crinkling against one another. I want to bring that gathering out a little bit. So I'm going to erase a little bit more than I need and then go back and tone them down. In this little pull in through here of the lip, there's a little pull. This goes up and they kind of crinkle in that direction. So let's work this, and let's take this and tone these just slightly, just back a little bit. And we can pull this one a little bit darker in through there. So we want to crinkle these up, make them feel crinkled and puckered, like he's whistling a little bit, so the expression, we get closer to the expression that we go through here, down and up and over. I'm going to bring this in a little bit, like so. We'll pull out a little bit, and so that's better. It gives me a little bit more of a crinkled, kind of puckered look in the mouth area. So okay, lastly, let's go and take a look at what we can do with the rest of the drawing a little bit and make it finish out a little bit more of the atmosphere. So the focal point's more on the left side of the head and in the face. I feel like maybe from this back here, this could be just a slightly little bit longer, so we'll bring that down, and we'll bring this down and over a little bit, so we'll start to work on that. And then pulling out this back area, this kind of atmosphere, I could go a couple ways. I could go back into him like so, and I might start doing that with a kind of a cross-hatched look. What we want to do is to tie in the entire composition together, and see how I'm just working my atmosphere. I'll work it right into the figure at times. Don't be afraid to overlap. It takes a lot of lines to really start to cover up any detailed area, so I'm going to work it towards him, and we're giving movement, expression, and movement to the individual, to the composition, mostly to the individual, to the composition, to the entire finished look of the drawing, and then tweaking everything as certainly as we can. So I might start in through here. I'm careful when I do my atmospheric effects, or just kind of giving a little bit of expression. I'm very careful not to crosshatch. That seems to counterbalance the flow and movement that I want when I do a sketch, a drawing. And so we'll pull this across here. I'll make it a little bit darker maybe in this nose area, and try to pull out that highlight on the nose a little somewhat more. Sometimes I'll bring tone right on in, so if we get a little closer you can see it right in through here. And I work pretty fast, pretty loose, pretty gestural in through here. And kind of build up line, I layer over the top of it, just keep layering, and I don't want to go too much darker. That feels pretty good right in through there. Just bring a little, kind of bury that shadow on the left side of his face where his eyes sort of slightly emerging if it's in shadow. Just push it back. And by pushing it back, meaning that softens up that profile line of my drawing, and he pushes back, and the light on the model comes forward, meaning in the eye, in the nose, in that area. So that feels pretty resolved for a sketch right in through in that area. Maybe I'll bring back the brow coming down. I mean, not so far down. It's going to be here, so I can pull in a little bit closer. Pull in a couple of lines to curve my brow. Careful not to heavy outline right in through here. Maybe a little bit darker. Let me bring this brow line in through here. Gonna keep that as a sketch. Let's see, go up a little bit. And then lastly, let's finish out the backside. So two things. I could continue to sweep it across in this diagonal motion like I've got now, or what I'm thinking about is moving it kind of the curve, follow the curve around the head and bringing it in this direction. Sometimes what I do, here's another tip or piece of advice, is I'll rotate the image. If I have a piece of paper, I can just rotate it. That helps me with my hand position, meaning that I have more of a natural viewpoint. Since I'm drawing right-handed, those of you that are lefty-handed, you might go a different direction. So I'm gonna put a little bit of atmosphere this way. So I'm curving it. I'm gonna curve a little bit around the head to give a natural flow to the back of the head. And of course I know my value is not as dark as the photograph, and I don't care. I want it to be a loose sketch. You've seen one longer rendering I've done on the Wacom tablet, so you know how tight, and that could get even tighter than that actually. I could get a lot tighter, but that's not the point. The point is to kind of finish up an hour and a half sketch in our sketchbook. This is, again, about 10 by 10 inches by 10 inches. That's a nice, I think pretty nice size. I might keep this loose. Let's go back and see what that looks like. So I'll go back to rotate. I'll rotate back, stand it back up, and see I've got this flow now of atmosphere, which is important. So I sweep you in from the left, and then sweep around the head, and I could even do a little couple of marks in here. It's subjective. There's so many different ways you can do this for sure. So, but this is one way that I do to kind of wrap this up. And I think I'm going to come down here to the bottom of the chin and pull this a little bit tighter so you have something to look at secondarily down here, so I don't lose the viewer. I'm going to pull this chin in a little bit. So this folds in through, a little darker in through here, and I'm going to pull this fold over. It's hard to see in the photo. I'm going to pull this around. I'm going to make this a little stronger, darker edged. I'm going to curl this in, and then I'm going to finish this out by some hatched lines, darker hatched lines, to make you come back and look here a little bit further. Let me bring this in, soften this up a little bit, less contrast right in through there. Let's see how that looks. It's the only thing, one thing I don't like about the Wacom tablet is when I have to go in there and look, I have to pull back out. So it's a little cumbersome. It's a little slower, and I'm going to soften this just a little in through here. This underneath form shadow of everything is coming together. So the shoulder, part of the neck, a little bit darker. Okay, all right, so that's a good long time of about an hour and a half. So I think pretty nice job. This brow might be a little bit lower, but I think I can adjust that on my own. The eye might be just a touch big compared to the other parts, but I think pretty good, overall pretty good expression. So I think it gives you an idea of working with the head, working in a kind of a gesture and structural a drawing approach to combine both together. Okay, all right, so there you go, and hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time at the drawing database. Take care.